Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this time to come together. We ask, Lord, that our hearts be clean, that our mind be sharp, that we might come to find out what these two candidates have to offer, and that it might be for the furtherance of our state. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing, I guess you can hear me, for the pledge of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the state flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
You may be seated. Thank you so much. You want to say anything more?
We certainly do appreciate everyone being here this evening. We just, want to make sure that we keep this as a civil discourse. Don't expect anything different, but let's remember that where we are and who we are as Republicans mainly, and just try to remember that and keep it civil as we can. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to say that if you're wearing a mask and you ask a question, if you'd like to pull the mask down, you're more than welcome so that we can understand the question, okay? Also, this is how the forum will be. We will begin with Shelley. She is the opponent. She will have 10 minutes to explain who she is and her platform. Then after that 10 minutes, Drew, Representative Springer, will give his background and his platform. I'll be sitting over there, guys, and when I go like this, that means it's been 9 minutes and you have 1 minute to wrap it up, okay? Everybody understand that? Also, we're not going to have any derogatory words toward each other, whether it's from candidates or from the audience. If so, we have plenty of policemen and sheriffs here that know how to escort you out. And I'm not afraid to ask them. And those that know me, Christy, know that I will ask, and they will do it, okay? So I want that very clear. We're Young County, we're Republicans, we're conservatives, and we like each other, okay? So we're going to be respectful of each other. So, is there any questions before we start? Okay, let me make sure I've covered everything. Oh, when a question is asked, we're not going to have a microphone that will go out. So if a question is asked, if everybody will please be silent so that question can be heard by the candidate. Any questions on that? Okay, we're going to start with Shelley. And Shelley, if you'll stand up. You want her to use the... She's a roamer.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Shelley Luther. A lot of you might have seen me on TV, perhaps my mugshot. I was the Dallas salon owner that went to jail for standing up against the unlawful restrictions that have been put on small businesses. I do not live in Dallas. I actually live in Pilot Point, Texas, on 5 acres. We rescue horses, we have goats, rescue donkeys, things like that. I like living in the rural area because it's quiet and nice, and going to Dallas actually pains me a little bit because it is so disruptive over there, and the people are so different, and that's why we decided to move very north. And if people keep moving that way, there's not enough room. We might be in Oklahoma someday. So I hope that doesn't happen. And I want to be able to keep SC 30 and these rural parts of Texas rural because it's very important. I was a school teacher. I taught for 13 years, Spanish, in high school. And man, we need some school reform. The STAR test is horrible and a waste of your taxpayer money. It tests our kids for mediocrity, and it's $10 million a year at least of your taxpayer money. I want to completely abolish property taxes because they are unconstitutional. And it's definitely something that can be done no matter what these legislators say. It absolutely can be done. What happens is you never own your house. You pay your mortgage, but if you don't pay your property taxes, the government takes your home from you. We have veterans and elderly people out on the street because their property taxes continue to rise, but their salary or their earnings do not. It's very important that we take care of the people that took care of us, the people that fought for us in wars, like my dad, who's a 26-year Marine veteran. A lot of people ask how I get this grit, or how do I get the stamina, the grit, the courage to do what I did. My dad fought in the Vietnam War, and I'm sure there are a lot of veterans in here that we owe that to, and I'm not gonna let that go. School reform starts with making the decisions for the curriculum locally. I do not want Austin telling our students what to learn, putting in LGBTQ things, talking about sex ed in 5th grade. That's what Austin is wanting. Thank God it got turned down this year. But they should have no decision in what small schools out here are teaching their kids. And I want parents to have full access to the curriculum so the community can decide what's best for your children. Because right now, with Black Lives Matter and all of these liberal ideas that they're pushing into our schools, not only are they dumbing them down, but they're making them horrible citizens. I also want to carry the bill for constitutional carry. I'm a huge Second Amendment person. I have 10 guns, including an AR. I hope Mr. Trump wins, and I'm still holding out for that. But if the other candidate wins, I can't even say his name, but if the other candidate wins, I hope nobody comes on my property unannounced. That's how I feel. That's how important our Second Amendment rights are. I also want to stop transgender modification. We have this happening very nearby to us, all over, where parents can decide a 3-year-old can start having a sex change. That is not right. A 3-year-old cannot decide their sex. God decides our sex. It's not a question. I also want to make sure that we take care of our veterans. We've been working with a hospital that's been vacant for 10 years, to where I don't want veterans to have to travel an hour and a half down to Garland or Dallas to get horrible care. It's very, very important that we take care of our elderly. I also want to make sure that we abolish abortion completely. Abolish it. Not pro-life. There's a difference. And now that we have this Supreme Court justice, we can absolutely abolish abortion. And right now, with other groups, they allow you to, it's called a 10-day rule, where a doctor can decide that a switch can be turned off on your family member, and you can't do anything about it. That needs to stop. And there are abortion groups like Texas Alliance for Life that support that. I will work directly with Texas Rights to Life and carry the bill to abolish abortion completely. And you need to be very clear on that when you say you want to abolish abortion. I am against mandatory vaccines. I will not get a COVID vaccine. That's my choice as a person, what I inject in my body. As my children, I have one that's over 18, she could decide that for her body. But let me tell you about vaccines. I don't know how many vaccines you took when you were younger or what they recommended. In 1986, it was about 11 vaccines. Right now, the CDC recommends almost 80 vaccines up until 18 years old. Almost 80. But how are you guys still alive? How is that even possible? We've got to stop letting the government tell us what to do. We need less government. We need more people involved like you in the government. Right now, the government is swampy. We have too many politicians in there and too many people that have separated from the people and what they actually need. And that's why I'm running. I'm not a politician. Do I have experience in Austin? Absolutely not. Do I need it? No, because I've been a school teacher. I've been a director of operations. I've hired and fired people, and I've ran a business myself, just like you guys. And when the founding fathers started government, they wanted it to be regular people, farmers, teachers, ranchers. You go do that for a couple of years, and then you go back to your regular job. That's why we make $600 a month. Right now, we have people that have been in years and years and years and years. I want term limits. We need new blood in there all the time because we can stay connected to what our constituents want. If you want to promote to a different job in government, great. I love Ted Cruz. I love him. I think he's doing a great job. I think that he should promote to a different position because we need term limits across the board. How else do we get rid of Nancy Pelosi? Seriously, that woman won't go away. Are you giving? Okay. So besides term limits being very important, I think that your property rights are very important. I will always back private property owners when it comes to anything. Mineral rights, water, eminent domain. I will always, always protect your private property. Every time I vote, I will vote for the individual people first. I want to go in and dust off that Constitution because right now the government is not looking at it and not abiding by the Constitution. Life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, property. That's it. It's very simple. If it doesn't involve that, get the government out. Right now, they run us. They forget that they are our employees. We pay them. They don't act like it. And Governor Abbott doesn't act like it. And I'm the only one that has stood up to him. Directly stood up to him and made him back up on what he said. Because it's not right. And I'm just a regular citizen. Just like you. I don't know why I had the courage to do that. I don't know why I got put in that place. I don't know why the special election opened up directly in Pilot Point where I live after all of these things happened to me. But I do know that, is that 9? So one more minute. I do know that 600 people wrote me handwritten letters from all across the United States after I got out of jail saying, please run for something. You are exactly what we need in office. This is exactly what we've been missing, a real person. People sent me their medals of honor from war. One of the letters said that if I was back in the jungles of Vietnam, you were the person I would want by my side. So it's not about me. If you were to ask me right now, would I want to be doing this? No. I'll be honest. I don't want my face everywhere. I don't want, everybody talking all this stuff about me and trying to break up my family. But God has called me to do this, and I'm going to do it because that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I've been called to do. Thank you.
Testing.
Just got to put it up to your mouth. God. Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate it. Okay, good.
Evening. It's good to be in a place I've seen so many times here in Young County and Graham. And hey, congratulations to the Graham Steers on the big win. Absolutely. Quarterfinals. So, it has been an honor to represent you guys for the last 8 years. And hopefully I've done what I've said I was going to do. But I know one thing. I've shown up. I've been here. I've been here in this arena. I've been all over Graham, Newcastle, Fort Belknap, Albany, visit with Air Tractor, Southern Bleachers, Wildcatter, in so many different places that make Young County special. And I've fought for rural Texas. I've sat with Sonny Cruz and talked about Graham ISD and the challenges that are faced. And I listened to him and what we needed to do in HB 3 last session. And I'm proud that we were able to pass school reform without the courts holding a gun to our head telling us we had to do that. But I also know when I ran the first time, and everybody said, we're not, all our kids aren't going to college. We've got to start teaching vocational education. And we passed HB 5 that gave them the right to do that. I've also got the bill already filed for this session that makes sure that in our small schools, when they do choose to go career and technical, that they're properly funded. Because it wasn't fixed right in HB 3, and we'll make sure that we get that fixed going forward from there. I'm proud that y'all said property taxes are too high, and we cut them $5 billion last session. So we've gone from $1.04 down to 92 cents on your M&O rate. But we need to do more. I had a bill last session, but there wasn't a desire in the body to hear it. That would have eliminated your school taxes from that aspect. And we can do that, and we'll continue to work on it. I'm proud about the work I did on defending our Second Amendment, from open carry to campus carry, to making sure if you have a business, a barbecue joint that doesn't put up a 30-06 sign and there's a shooting, they can't come take your business because of it. I'm proud that we stood with our first responders last session when municipalities weren't covering their cancer insurance. And now we have a new problem with COVID and the fact that they're not getting coverage for workers' compensation. And I filed the bill to protect our fine first responders like those standing at the back of the room and our firefighters. And we've had 60 law enforcement officers die this year, and they're not getting coverage because the city says they can't prove where they got COVID. That's not right. That's not who we are as Texans, and we'll continue to fight for that. I'm proud that HB 2, that was one of the strongest in the nation, fights against abortions, that we passed it under my watch, that we took on Wendy Davis and we beat her and made sure of that, and we continued. I was the one who authored the bill to defund Planned Parenthood, and then this last session I handed it off to Candy Noble and she passed it. And so I fought for those things, and I'll continue to fight for it because I've already filed the bill that was what we call a trigger bill, because we do have a new justice. They have 20 cases to abolish abortions or overturn Roe v. Wade. And what that means is as soon as the courts go to that lowest standard, Texas would automatically go to that standard. We force our medical students in Texas to learn to perform abortions. They should not be doing that. And we need to change that so they're not forced to do that. So we can tackle it from that standpoint. But this pandemic has been terrible for Texas, and it's been really hard on rural Texas. I've heard the voices here in Graham, Texas, from the lady who owns the boutique here in town that sells fire retardant clothing to all of our county employees. But she wasn't allowed to be open, so they had to go to Walmart. That's not right. That's not fair. We need to change that. And that's why I filed the bill, the first one in the House, to make sure that the governor only has 7 days and he can't go on forever, and then he has to pull us back for a special session. He listened to me. You know, at some levels, he listened to me a lot. He didn't always agree, but one of the ones early on was when he put the mask mandate. So we do not have the problem out in rural Texas, and that's why for the counties that were less than 20, he didn't require the mask. And at that time, every single one of the 22 counties in House District 68 were excluded. So I've worked with the governor. Haven't always agreed with him. But we've worked together quite a bit. I've been married for 29 years to Lydia, my beautiful bride. And we don't always agree. She always tells me that's because I'm wrong. You know, Governor Abbott, I look forward to working with him next session. He knows that I filed these bills that challenge his authority on that. And he hasn't fought them because we've got to overturn them. Because next time, if we ever have a Democrat as governor, they may try to ban fracking because of climate change. They may say suicide is a disaster, and we need to take all your guns away. And so that's why we need to make those changes and address those problems that we face. It's rural issues. One of the things we've been working on, and we've got to continue to work on, and it's highlighted here just a couple months ago when funding to our rural telephone companies has been cut, that we have to come up with a statewide rural broadband initiative. Just like last century we did electrification to rural America, rural Texas, we have to do it for rural Texas on the broadband as well. And we'll lead that fight to make sure that that happens from that standpoint. You know, I'm proud to say I've been a Republican my whole life. I voted for Ronald Reagan in 1984. And, you know, I look over here at probably one of the finest Republicans that this state or country has ever seen, in Alita. She has worked tirelessly for the Republican Party for decades, and we'll just leave it at that. But, you know, and I'm proud to say I voted in Republican primaries every single time. I'm proud to say in November, I voted to ban income taxes in the state of Texas, probably like most every one of y'all in here did. We show up, we vote, we do our civic duty. I travel 60,000 miles through this district every year, hold 50 town halls. But that doesn't count the time that Sonny Cruz says, hey, will you come over here and let me show you what's going on with one of our classes or one of the issues we're having at school. Go up to Air Tractor and go see Mike Huff at Olney Hospital, because rural healthcare is critical to survival in rural Texas. If you don't have healthcare and education, you won't have a community very long. But making those trips out here all the time to come out and see it. And it's why I'm proud to be endorsed by so many people in this room. I'm proud to say that the sheriff has officially endorsed me today, and I'm honored to have his endorsement from that. And I'm proud about all my endorsements, but I want your vote. I'm proud that the NRA knows that I'm the best candidate on the Second Amendment and has endorsed me, which they rarely do when there's two Republicans ever running. I'm proud to be in the hometown of the Texas Southwest Cattle Raisers Association, in 1877, founded right here in Graham, Texas, that has endorsed me, as has every other ag group like Farm Bureau, law enforcement. Our firefighters have endorsed me. Healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, hospital associations have all endorsed. Our small businesses, from NFIB to our larger ones, have as well. Realtors. It's because they know that I'm the person who understands the policies that affect each and every one of the groups we work with every single day. But it's working with those groups for the benefits of y'all in this room, for the citizens of Young County. And every vote I have taken has been for them, to make sure we're doing the right things for Texas. Because Lydia and I have been blessed to have 3 kids. We now have a daughter-in-law. And this year we got blessed again to have our first grandchild. And so I ran for House, and everybody asked, why are you running? I said, because I want to make sure Texas is the same Texas all of us with more gray hair grew up in, to have the same opportunities for our kids. I'm running for Texas Senate because now I want that same opportunity for my grandson, y'all's grandsons, your kids, to make sure Texas stays Texas. And I will continue to be the fighter that I've been for you every single day in Austin, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, now we're going to take questions. One at a time, please, and direct your question to the candidate that you want to talk to. Okay? Is there questions, please? Come on now. Did they do that good a job?
Joe, back.
Thank
I have a question
you. For
for
Shelley?
Shelley. My question is this: you say you want to abolish property tax, right?
Yes, sir.
So what's going to replace that in the county?
That's a great question. So what I'm mainly focusing on are the school property taxes. A lot of people live in their homes, they either don't have kids or their kids have gone away, and I'll address the entire thing for you. But government, public schools should be funded by the state, and we can do that if they cut their government spending. I don't want to add a tax to create more funding for schools. The government spending is outrageous. We spend billions of dollars on illegal immigrants. When we throw our veterans out on the street, we pay for their housing, we pay for their medical, their schooling, the hospital bills. That's all on us. We have an open border that we haven't taken care of. So I'll get to you, sir. We also have corporate welfare that our government spends our money on that we don't agree with. There's a contact tracing bill that our governor spends money on that we don't agree with. There's also taxpayer-funded lobbying where your tax money goes directly to lobbyists in Austin to work against you. The bills need to be cut in Texas. That can cover the amount that is paid to our schools. The rest of it could be a consumption-type tax on non-essential products, Hostess cupcakes, sodas, anything that's unhealthy. Anything like milk, bread, diapers, we're not going to add a consumption tax to. But what that does, it makes illegal immigrants pay their fair share of taxes. And it also makes to where if you want to buy a luxury type item, which I figure a Hostess cupcake is kind of luxury, you pay an extra 1 or 2% sales tax on that. And only the people that afford it will buy those things. So if we cut government spending a lot, and I mean a lot, and this is a process that's going to take at least probably 10 years, but we've also got to cap the taxes where they are, and we need to make appraisal positions elected positions.
That's a lot of information you just gave me. But let me just explain something else. And this is from me. I've lived in many states. My property tax in Louisiana was $18.95. Guess what we had in Louisiana? State income tax. I've lived in Texas and grew up in Texas, and we've never had state income tax. The reason they developed or came up with state income tax in Louisiana is because the property taxes were so low. So the government had to raise some type of money, and the way they did that is they had an income tax on the person's income. You talked about just then about school tax or whatever. I'm talking about property tax that goes to the county to actually fund our roads, to actually take care of our county itself. And that's very important as a citizen of Young County. And the commissioners very much need that money to actually take care of our county.
I agree with you, sir. I will say I will never vote yes to an income tax, ever. I'm sorry, I just don't agree with you on that. Texas is great because we don't have an income tax. I will never say yes to an income tax. What we can do is do a consumption tax based on what people buy, and that can earn your money for the county, including for our police officers, including for roads, lights, tollways, firefighters, all of that stuff. The money is there. The government is not spending it the correct way and the way that they should be. Thank you.
Next question? Next question? Is somebody over here? Yes,
I have a follow-up question for Ms. Luther,
okay.
just on the property tax. Can you tell me what the largest expense is for a rural county, like Young County? Have you ever looked at one of our county budgets where the property taxes actually fund that item? Do you know what the largest expense is?
Are you talking about the county or the portion that goes to the school?
No, the county taxes. When you say you want to abolish property taxes, what's the largest expense, and how many Hostess cupcakes would we have to sell to fund that expense?
It's not just Hostess cupcakes.
It's hard to compare Hostess cupcakes essential tax to our property tax.
So there's a certain amount that a county receives. What I'm saying is, if there's a raise on tax on certain items that are non-essential, I'm not talking about diapers and things like that. If you raise the sales tax on something, what some people have called a luxury tax, which has happened before and happens in other states, there is enough money for that.
What is the largest expense for Young County?
I would say roads, highways, and ag.
No, ma'am. And one thing that you haven't addressed because a lot of what you say, man, we're all fed up with that. All of us.
What are you fed up with?
A lot of your bullet counts. Money being misappropriated and being spent from the federal all the way down to local. That's a blanket thing you can say. What you haven't addressed is the Young County Jail is one of our larger expenses in this county, and it is that way across the state of Texas. And the mental health, that the jails are taking care of that.
No, we are definitely lacking mental health across the United States. And that's why, can I answer please? And that's why I think that it's very important that we open this Veterans Hospital, which has a huge floor just for mental patients. And a lot of them have PTSD from the war. That doesn't mean they can't also take in other patients for mental, because there's a lot of people that are in jail that shouldn't be in jail. They should be in a mental facility.
Yes, but they're not veterans.
I said some of them don't have to be veterans. The floor is huge. That's why I'm working on that. I realize that mental issues and psychology is a huge problem. It's actually all across the United States, but Texas is one of the worst in the nation.
Yes. Yeah. I have a hard time seeing how abolishing property tax, there's no income tax, would fund all of that.
Well, I would never vote yes on an income tax. I don't want to punish people for making money. And it's not fair that because someone's making more money that they should have to input more taxes like that. I think that it should be on a consumption base. And all of Texas would agree with that on a whole. We do not want an income tax.
Other questions? Okay. For
When it
Drew or
comes
Shelley?
to taxes, that's where, bring up what he didn't want to go.
For Drew or for Shelley?
Both of them.
Okay.
We had a governor at one time that cut our school taxes. He gave us a $5,000 more deduction on our property. Right? Is the school gonna do without less money because he cut our property value? No. State comes along and raises your property, or your county does. They raise your property value back to $5,000 more. So not only does your school tax go back where it was, your county tax and all these other hospital tax and all that stuff, it goes up. So your taxes actually went up over that deal. It took a year for them to do it, but the schools are not gonna get by with less money. And if you change your tax system, your taxes are gonna go up some way or other. No matter what you change to, they're gonna say, it takes more money to run this than we've been getting, so your taxes gonna go up.
No, you're exactly right. When we did the compression, when it went from $1.50 to $1 on the school taxes and saved all that, the problem is we didn't set that dollar based on what your appraisal was, and as appraisals went up, that dollar went down. We have now done that with what we passed last session with SB 2. So that school taxes can only go up 2.5%. So when I said we cut it from $1.04 to 92 cents, if your house or land goes up 10% every year, it cannot exceed 2.5% because we don't want to see it continue to grow how it has. And so we have worked to slow that from happening again, because that was the fault of what they did, whether that was about 15 years ago when they did that compression, that they didn't put that in. And so we've addressed that now in the state to be able to do that. But you're right, the cost of educating kids are not going down. We spend over $80 billion. And so, yeah, STAR test is $10 million, and eliminate it. That doesn't affect your taxes hardly at all on what we would do there. There are large dollars on what we spend to educate kids. And the problem we have in our schools today is it wasn't like everybody who raised their kids here, and really anybody who's involved and shows up. You raise your kids right, you teach them respect, they learn. Half of our school kids don't have the key thing to success, which is a parent, or one that acts it deserves that title as a parent. And so we've asked our teachers to do just unbelievable things. They have to be a mental psychiatrist. They have to be a nutritionist. They have to deal with all their home problems. for half the kids that come, and it is expensive to educate. And we do, and the courts have ruled, we have to educate everybody who shows up at the door. The state of Texas does not have the ability to say, no, we're not going to educate those people.
You're exactly right. What the problem is the appraisal side of the taxes. That's what affects you directly. We've got to stop the bleeding on that. You've capped the number, because what happens is they're saying, we only raised it 1%, we only raised it 2%, but if they don't deal with the appraisal of your house, your taxes continue to go up. And it's a trade for another, and it's never good for you. I want to abolish property taxes because I don't want your taxes to fluctuate. I want you to be in control of what you pay for taxes, and that's by consumption. You control that. As a teacher, I had to buy all of my own supplies for my school, for my room to decorate it. We barely made anything. I bought school supplies for the kids that couldn't afford it, when there were administrators making over $300,000 a year. The money is misappropriated. The money is spent all up on top and not down in the classroom where it needs to be, where our kids can really learn. It needs to be more like a free market, because right now you can barely get a teacher to fill a position because the job is so horrible. Because they're scared of Black Lives Matter things. They're scared of saying it's something inappropriate and getting fired. They're not getting back. Teachers' hands are tied because they can't discipline the kids in the classroom.
Amen.
So if you absolutely want to change, those schools can change how much they're spending. We don't have to give superintendents $300,000 a year, and that's not what I'm saying happens exactly right here, but they make a heck of a lot more than teachers do, and the teachers are the ones doing the work. It's the people that are doing the work that deserve the money. And if we paid teachers what they're worth, you would have a free market enterprise and people would be waiting in line to take those teaching positions. So if you have a bad teacher, bye. We have 10 waiting in line that want your job because you're worth it. Our police officers, it's the same thing. You're worth it because we're paying you. People are dying to get here because of what we pay you and how we treat you. If we don't put the people on the front lines that are directly affecting our children, if we don't put them first, then we're in trouble. And that has to do with property taxes. They need to be appropriated correctly, number one. And number two, you cannot control your property taxes if we don't get rid of the whole appraisal of your house part of it. So you have to go with the consumption tax, put the power back with the people.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have one for Drew. Our upcoming Speaker of the House, from what I've read and some of the research I've done on him, leans a little bit more towards the working with the Democrats than he does the Republicans. I know you can't speak for your other brothers in the House, but what is your thought on him, on Mr. Davis?
No, Mr. Representative Dave Phelan from Beaumont, Texas, this last weekend was just unanimously elected by the House Republican Caucus to lead us as our Speaker. So that was 83 members strong that voted for him. And in fact, I should say 82 members because I stayed here to campaign and didn't go down the vote. But unanimously, he was elected to serve there. The point I would make about Dave, though, is he chaired State Affairs last session. And one of the bills that came up dealt with taxpayer-funded lobbying. That was one that the Democrats opposed. He could have easily killed that bill. He worked with the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Mays Middleton, out of Galveston, Texas, to help him get that bill to the floor. And he could have easily done like Byron Cooke did years ago with so many things that went through State Affairs, killed that bill. And Dave made sure that that bill got through. I'm proud to say Mays Middleton's endorsement, the leader of the Freedom Caucus, because that is the conservative wing of the House. And so that far side on from there. And so to have Mays' support is good. Dave is one, though, that also believes in letting the House work. That means when Republicans are in charge and Republicans have the vote, Republican legislation will move forward to be able to do that. Look, there was a few Democrats that early on jumped on, they knew that Dade was gonna win. And, you know, it was really the moderate Democrats. It was not the progressives from Austin. They fought Dade. They did not want Dade. They continued to try to back another candidate in the Republican Party so that they wouldn't have Dade feeling. So I feel comfortable that he is going to work for the agenda, for the Republican priorities that we've set, and allow those things to work through the process.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Any other questions?
Come over here. I've got kind of a statement first before I ask the question. You know, most of us probably are Republicans that are here. Have you taken a real good look at what is going to happen if Joe Biden gets the presidency? I mean, have you taken a good close look? This country is going to change. Now, my theory is, the last election, 85.2% of Young County and the surrounding counties here all voted for Trump. But the state of Texas, poll-wise, it was 52% versus 48%. Now what in the hell is going on with Texas? You know, we used to be the leaders in what Texas did, the nation did. How soon is it going to be that we're going to be blue instead of red? Because I don't think that most people really take a good look at what, not Joe Biden, because he's just a puppet, but what the rest of them are going to do. Can you think about if he's in there for 6 months and then gets sick, does more than break an ankle with his dog? You know, those people are radical. They're going to take the word God and take it off of everything. They're going to do away with guns. Old Bevo's going to be lining up right now thinking, boy, look at me. Those guns are gone. So I can go on with every doggone statement. My question is, Drew and Shelley, what is going to take place with the Republican Party and bring something up there that we will be able to, as a group, get behind and have a, you know, in the next 4 years, something to talk about, something to drive for. And I think that's very, very important. I know taxes are important, I pay those too. But, you know, this scares me when I think about what could happen to Texas, you know, and we ought to really think about it, and it's going to require each one of us to do it. But I'd like to hear something said about what can be done.
Well, don't volunteer.
That's my husband. I'm going to elect you.
No, Jerry, thanks. You know, the best thing is I've had 4 years of experience of doing that. The first 4 years, if y'all remember, was when Obama and Biden were trying to do what they did to Texas. And we fought them all the time. We knew that they didn't properly fund the border. And so we put in the budget as a priority to make sure that we secured the border. I passed $2.4 trillion roughly. I'm sorry, $2.4 billion. Trillion would be huge. I mean, now it's all in Washington. $2.4 billion to make sure that we're working to secure the border. From drug flow to human trafficking flow, where the President Obama failed. And President Biden, Harris are going to fail us just as well. Those of you in agriculture know how bad Obama was when he did Waters of the World. And we had to fight him on that. And to make sure that every little, you know, drainage ditch didn't become navigable water. And so we will have those fights with him. We know how to push back against him. We know how to pass legislation that allows the Attorney General to set up for lawsuits that are ready to go to the Supreme Court, where we do hold a 6-3 majority, to be able to overturn anything that Biden does. So those are the things we're going to work to fight back on what Washington's doing. When they don't do the right things, we'll step in to make sure Texans are secure. We'll push back when they fight against our liberties and our freedoms and our properties. And we'll address them from those. just like we did the first 4 years I was in.
I'm gonna be honest with you. This is what I've learned. You are voting in people that do not care about you. You are voting in people who ignore the Republican platform. It wasn't touched in the last session. Your priorities weren't touched. So there were not improvements in Texas. We allowed this to happen. We have representatives that have closed-door meetings that only allow certain people in to elect a Speaker of a House that's not even really Republican. He calls himself a Republican, but he's the only Republican that's been awarded for his LGBT activities and how he's contributed to that. If we are the majority in both the House and the Senate, why did we not pick a speaker that was a real Republican? Why are we having to compromise with Democrats? We shouldn't. Why are lobbyists running the decisions in Austin? Because our people are greedy and they're bought. You wouldn't need lobbyists if you had representatives that voted for what you wanted. You need someone with no strings attached that goes in and I mean business. You've seen me stand up. I will stand up to the Democrats. I will stand up to the other Republicans saying, I thought you said you were conservative. I will give transparency to the voters. So if someone's acting like a rhino, you vote them out. You are responsible for this. 2022, Abbott's got to go. He is not what you voted in. He has used Texas as a stepping stone to something else, and he's been bought. Get the government back in your hands. You are responsible for this. Elect real people that care about you, that go in and do what they say they're going to do, and if they don't, get them out immediately. That's how we get Texas back.
Trent?
Everything you're saying, I'm going to tell you this, is one thing I wouldn't mention. I speak to people on a much smaller level than you guys for this party. I speak about why I'm Republican. But guess what? You don't take nearly the heat I take. And I think about black, white, Hispanic, whatever. And I don't care, because I'm going to keep speaking. You know why? Because I'm not letting the Democrats tell me what to do, or my people, no matter what color they are. But neither of you address that. And I'm going to tell you this. My platform is, the reason Biden's in office is because we sat back and we thought the things of the past would just keep pushing us through. Well, guess what? The Democrats evolved into a monster to where you're scared to put a Trump sign in your yard, to where you're scared to say God. This party is based on religion and the freedom and values of this country, but yet I see these representatives who have a lot of money, who speak to certain people and forget people my color. And do you know there's a lot of us out there? We will come out the woods if you give us something to come out and get. We'll take care of the property tax. Those things will always be in government. And when I speak, I come from the heart. Because what Trump did for me is he went in and he destroyed everything. And I'm picking up the pieces, but I'm picking up pieces with white hands, Hispanic hands, Chinese hands, Republicans. And I want to build and evolve this party. Me, little me. I don't got the power yet, but I'm fighting for it. And I'll speak in front of a liberal crowd. I'll speak in front of Democrats. And I'll call out those so-called black Republicans and say, yeah, give that money back, you get lost because you're not what I want, what the people want. And yet you guys, I think you're speaking all the right things. But I heard it all before. What can you do to bring out my people? The people who don't look like everyone in this room, who want to believe in you. Because I do. That's why I'm here. I'm the only black person here. And that's fine. I don't care if it was 50,000 people. But I want to hear from you what I say from the heart, because I believe in this party. Because you guys welcome me, and this party needs to get more people in it. This party never was a party of all white. We were labeled that back in the 50s and 60s, and you haven't changed it. Okay, you have Owens, you have Colonel Allen West. Okay, to me, honestly, my opinion, a few token blacks speaking for you does not do it for me, and won't do it for those people who want to vote for you, who know the Democrats are just playing them, getting their vote, giving them free food stamps. We're not the party of handouts. We're the party of hard work, and you'll be rewarded, and we will help you when you need it. But we're not going to buy your votes by giving you handouts and not letting you grow to think for yourself. And that's my platform when I speak, and I would love you guys to put that in your repertoire when you guys speak, and maybe things will happen. Because you know what? I didn't move from New York, where it's blue, to come to Texas, where I thought was the pinnacle of red, and yet I see blue trying to fight in because we're not strong enough. The old way of doing things are done. We got to sharpen our teeth and fight back. And that's what I want to hear from you guys.
That's Trenton White. He's a young Colonel West. And he now lives here, and he's a strong Republican. He's an awesome guy. Thank you, Trenton. Anybody want to respond to that?
I definitely appreciate that and agree with everything that you're saying. I was actually, I took a hit on my campaign because after I got, it sounds weird, but after I got out of jail, I got out after 2 days instead of 7. And then I was attacked by different parties saying that it was white privilege, things like that. I was a school teacher of every kid, of every color. I taught Spanish, not my native language. I value everybody for who they are. When I got out of jail, we helped every small business owner that we could. We went to restaurants giving thousands of dollars, black, white, did not matter. We gave $18,000 to a black-owned barber in South Dallas. At the time when there was no rioting, there was no looting going on at all, there were black people protesting in the streets. I made a tweet that said the Black Lives Matter movement that was happening at the time, that was not violent, should join with Open Texas. We would be a force that you could not recognize. A lot of the things we want are the same: liberty, freedom, respect. And I got hit on that. Of course, 2 days later, the rioting and the looting started, and I said, well, a group has taken over BLM, and that is Marxist terrorism, of course. But we have to, like he said, unite and bring everybody together and quit leaving people out of the Republican Party. And we need to do a better job of getting young people in here and all of the other black people, Hispanic people, anyone that wants to be a Republican, because we need them or we will turn blue.
Thank you, Trey. And what you have to do is you've got to go, and what he's saying is we've got to do and meet people on their own areas. And so I've sat in the pew on the east side with Reverend Reginald Blow, African-American leader in Wichita Falls, and talked with them about what are their needs, what are we not doing, what are we not listening to. I'm here to hear you. Because God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that order. And so listening first and foremost of what are the concerns. Because you're right, it's about their values. And if we listen, we understand that we share so much. And we need to re-emphasize that we share that we want to give those opportunities. It's why when we did HB3 this last session, we put more money in for bilingual education. Because our Hispanic brothers and sisters that share an awful lot of the same values that our African American brothers and sisters do on family, small government, low regulations, because they can easily open a business. And that's why I held another event where we brought in about a dozen of the Hispanic leaders in Wichita County to do that very thing, because I haven't served them. I haven't sat down with them. We didn't make a big deal about it, but I wanted to understand what was important to them. And the fact that when you sit down and say, I want to understand, what are we not addressing that we need to address? What's important that you want to hear me answer? And then they know that somebody who's, one of us is going to represent 1 million people, that you care enough about their community to listen to them and hear them out before you come in and tell them what you think they want to hear. That's how you start building that party up, with each and every one of those coming to join us. And that's what I'll continue to do, just like I have. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to the Young County Republicans for doing this event. I think it's really nice to have events like that to actually learn about all the candidates. So this question is for Shelley. So I've been talking to a lot of different voters, and what really shocked me a lot about the undecided voters, like a lot of them are like, at the end of the day, both of them are Republicans. Both of them might vote on the same issues and everything, and that's the reason why a lot of people might not be voting in this election. So the question is, what will be the main difference with you as a candidate that maybe your rival might not have worked on, or what will be the main thing that you will work on if you get elected to office?
So it's kind of two different questions there. The main thing that separates me, or how I'm different from my opponent, is that I'm not a politician. I don't have any political ties to Austin. I don't owe my vote to any political parties or PACs. I want to go there. I'm a teacher. I like checklists. I want to look at the Republican platform, and I want to go down the list and make sure what you ask for, you get, or at least gets a vote on it so we can see how everybody's voting. That's what makes us different. I'm going to vote like I'm looking you in the eye because you deserve that. As far as the other question you asked me, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Like, if you get elected to office.
Oh yeah, what's my main?
Your main
Of course, it's government overreach. That's the top of the platform. And I've already stood up to it. I will stand up to it again. Governor Abbott works for us. He's still not my boss, even if I get elected. You are the boss. You decide. And if we get these conservative Republicans to actually vote how they say they're going to vote, then we won't have a problem getting it back. I think Texas should never be shut down. And I believe in personal responsibility for yourself. I don't believe in 7 days or 30 days. No, you do not have the right to shut us down and keep us from making money for our family. You don't have that right, especially the governor. Personal responsibility because you're smart enough to decide for yourself and your family what you should be doing to protect yourself. The government is not there to keep you safe. They're there to protect your rights. That's their only duty. They need to start doing that.
So I started off saying the first bill I filed was on executive orders. But the other piece of that I would say is, it is the rural issues that we face on infrastructure. And that's making sure that broadband, roads, and water. And making sure, because those affect each and every one of us every single day. So that those have to be a big part of what this Senate district needs. Over 35% of it is rural. And there's not a lot of rural senators down there that care about rural Texas. And so we need somebody who understands that, works on it. And then the other thing that makes us different, I know how to get things done for the constituents of Young County and the other 13 counties that make up this Senate district. And the evil PACs that we're talking about, that's the fact that Farm Bureau yesterday gave me another $2 for each one of their members that live in this district. That is representing the Farm Bureau members of this district. Do I share the values? Yes, I want to work on eminent domain with Farm Bureau because I don't think they're evil and I don't think their issues evil. I want to work with the NRA because there's 5 million Texans that are members of the NRA. And so, yes, they're lobbyists because they lobby for your right to carry a gun. And so I will continue to work with them proudly and work for that. I won't work with anybody that's working against the interest of ST30, Young County, or any of the other 13 counties. And understanding that, I think, is what dramatically makes a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna wrap this up. It's 7 o'clock. We'll have to say, we'll have 2 more questions because I see 2 people that want them. You first and then you.
This mine's for Mr. Springer. We just elected you last month as our representative in the House. What happens to your seat if we elect you as senator?
If you elect me senator, that will be the one bad thing I will say will happen for Young County is you're gonna have another election. Because the 22 counties that make up HD 68 would have to have a special election, just like me and Mrs. Luther ran for on this one. It was a special election called. And it'd be the same format. As many people could run, either party could run in there for that seat.
How quickly would that happen? I mean, is this something that would happen fast that?
The laws change once you're inside session or the start of session within 21 days, so it would happen relatively fast.
Okay.
And the governor sets the exact date, but it is a very small window gap between there that he would set it.
Okay.
Bridget, did you have a question? Bridget?
This question is for Drew, and it goes back to the property tax issue. Drew, what is your opinion on Shelley's idea of the consumer or the consumption tax as a way to eliminate property taxes?
Well, there's not enough retail activity in Young County, in Newcastle, in Albany, to pay for the services that we would buy. Because if Albany, Texas had to raise their tax rate to what it would be to cover the amount that they generate off of property so that they could have a police department, streets, you would be at 24% and everybody would be driving to Fort Worth to buy everything. So you would just close your Main Street bricks and mortars down. So you just cannot do that from that aspect. On the M&O, and that's the one I said I filed last year, we could eliminate 50% to 100% homestead exemption where homeowners don't pay property taxes and replace that with the small amount of things that aren't taxed today. And that's what I had in my bill last time. Look, it is not a sin in Texas to drive a car that burns gas. But Tesla owners don't pay their fair share of the road tax. A Ford Fusion pays $225 a year in road taxes, albeit at 20 cents a gallon when they're filling up. Teslas ought to have that added to their registration sticker, and it would make things fair. And so it's all about tax fairness in that standpoint, and we can use that to buy it down. But you can't eliminate the county side. You can't eliminate it because all you'll do is you will just destroy businesses in rural Texas if you do that.
So what are some alternatives into the property tax? Which I agree, to have your land taken because you don't pay tax, which has happened in Colorado and many other states. What's an alternative to property tax, which is likely unconstitutional? We talked about.
No, I mean, look, mine's under consumption, so I mean, I was talking about gas for the Tesla side of it, making up on that aspect of it. The one I've had is, and my favorite one to always use is this. There's $120 million right there if we charge the sales tax. Today's current 8 1/4 or 6 1/4 for the state if we charge it on bottled water. There's $600 million when you put cakes, cookies, donuts, potato chips, bottled water in there. And you can use that to buy down your homestead exemption and be able to extend that out. So those are the type of things you would look at from that aspect of it. But you've got to be looking at fair consumption taxes through there. We used to tax to the tune of $250 million a year. Over-the-counter medicine, aspirin, ibuprofen, we could go back to taxing that. If people said I didn't have to pay any school tax, but when I have a headache, I'm going to pay 18 cents for a bottle of aspirin, they probably would think that's a good trade-off. And so it is in there that you would be able to come up with the answers.
I got one more.
So basically, his answer was the same as mine, a consumption tax. The same exact answer.
What about taxes, property taxes on 65, 70, and older? Those are the ones that are really being hit hard in reference. What can be done to help them out?
Who are you asking this?
Both of them.
Sure. So those are, from the school standpoint, we've allowed the 65 and over freeze on property taxes. And so, I continue to support those freezes from that aspect of it. So all your school taxes are. The cities and counties are left for that local option on whether they want to put that to their voters, whether they want to do that themselves. And so the local decisions get to decide from that aspect.
So in the small towns, if you can't eliminate property taxes completely, what if you, when you first buy your house, or what your house is appraised at that time, and the local governments can decide this, you pay a certain amount of property tax, and your appraisal never changes, and it's a certain percent until you leave that house. If a small town wants to decide that they want to do that for their county taxes, then they can decide to do that. But as far as property taxes is concerned, if we can eliminate most of them, especially for the school portion of it, with cutting government spending, then that's absolutely acceptable. We can do it. There's government spending that's disgusting. That needs to go away. You would be disgusted with what your money's going to.
Well, I want to thank you.
One more question. I hate taxes as much as anybody. And I like the idea of eliminating property taxes, but we got to pay the bills somehow, y'all know that. I like your idea of, yeah, there's plenty of money which is not appropriated correctly. I believe that's true. One thing that, about property taxes, I think it falls unfairly on the shoulders of farmers and ranchers. For that reason, my dad was a farmer. He invested in land. That was his IRA. But he paid every year the taxes. Now, if he'd invested in some other things as his rather than land, he might have accumulated more money, but he wouldn't have to pay those taxes every year. So, I'm not in favor of more taxes, but if you eliminate these taxes, I could maybe say, okay, we could do a state income tax because that's a more fair tax.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to end this now. Thank you, Shelley, for coming. Thank you, Drew. We really appreciate it.
I agree with you on the move. Absolutely.
They agree. You're welcome to stay and visit with them. I'm sure they're ready to get home now, but please make yourself comfortable and have some more.